Okay, hello students. Today we're going to talk a little bit about solving two-step equations. Last class we talked about solving one-step equations. Before we dive into that, I want to always give you a big heads up on when to expect our next assessment. Our next assessment is going to be the week of the 28th. That is the last week in September. I'm not exactly sure what program we'll use for our testing. Given the virtual learning situation. So be patient with me on that, but I'll get that information to you just as soon as I possibly can. Okay, and that'll be on algebra, the algebra review that we're currently doing. Today's class, as I said, will be two-step equations. We need to remind ourselves the difference between expressions and equations. Equations have equal signs, that's what we use to solve. Expressions don't have equal signs, and we're usually evaluating expressions, like plugging in a value for a variable. Okay. Now, pardon me. When we evaluate expressions, we use order of operations, which is PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication or division. And remember, that's left to right. Sometimes you divide before you multiply. Sometimes you multiply before you divide. It depends on left to right. And the same is true for addition, subtraction, left to right. Okay? Now, we use PEMDAS for expressions. To solve equations, we use the opposite. We use SADMEP, which is addition, subtraction first, then multiplication, division, then exponents, then parentheses. Just the exact opposite, okay? Now, a reminder of PEMDAS over here, we have a couple of examples we looked at last class where you plugged in a value for x, plugged in a value for y, and followed order of operations, PEMDAS. Now, to do our solving of two-step equations, I gave an example here, already solved, and notice we didn't divide first, we added and subtracted first. So, because we have a plus 3, to get that to the other side, we subtracted 3 from both sides, and then we divide, right? We added and subtracted first, then we multiply, divide, then exponents, then parentheses. A good way of thinking about it is working from the outside in, working from the outside into the variable, working toward the variable, okay? Now, we have a couple of examples here. Let's see if I can get a pen working. There we go, cool. Okay, now using our SADMEP, as always, forgive me for my handwriting. Writing with a mouse, it's not very easy. So, using SADMEP, we're going to add subtract first. We notice that on this first problem, to get n by itself, we have a plus 4 here. The 4 is positive, so we need to subtract to get it by itself. A good habit to get into is drawing that line down the center. Now, 4 minus 4, well, that's 0. That cancels out. 0 minus 4 is negative 4. N over 5 is all that's left. Now that we've added, subtracted, now we can multiply, divide. Because it's dividing by 5, we're going to multiply by 5. Now we have it down to our one-step equation. And these cancel out, leaving you with just n. The n is isolated. And 4 times negative 5, or negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. This is absolutely correct, but we know we're trying to get in the habit of writing the variable first and then the value. There we are. Okay. Now, looking at this next problem, following our SADMEP right here, are working from the outside in, we want to take care of addition, subtraction. There is no addition, subtraction outside of the parentheses. Remember, parentheses is last, right? So we're going to move to multiplication, division. This 2 is multiplied. So we're going to divide by 2 and divide by 2, giving us, these cancel out, n plus 5 equals negative 1. Okay, 2 divided by 2 is 1. Negative divided by positive is a negative. Now we can work at the inside of the parentheses here, which is minus 5. Minus 5 is our inverse operation. Oops, always forget that line. N equals negative 6. N equals negative 6. Okay? Now, Our last problem here is a bit unique because it's not as obvious that there is parentheses here. Though you can't see them because it's all in the numerator, the top of the fraction, they're in parentheses. So instead of adding or subtracting first, we're going to move to multiplication division. It's divided by 6, so we're going to multiply by 6. Multiply by 6. The 6's cancel out, giving us -6 equals 5 plus x. Now, we have these parentheses here, but we don't need them anymore because it's not being divided or multiplied. So we can subtract 5, giving us -11 equals x. And though this is correct, much like our first problem, we want to get in the habit of writing the variable first. Okay. And those are our two-step equations. A couple of examples. And we can clear it all. Awesome. Now, we can use these same two-step equations to solve real-life problems. And let's have a couple of examples of those. So there's 331 students total that went on a field trip. Let's say they went to the museum or the aquarium. And there was 6 buses filled with students, and 7 students traveled in cars. How many students were in each bus? Well, first we need to define a variable. B, we'll call is the number of students in a bus. Students, oh, that's getting bad. Students each bus. Whew, yikes. Okay, number of students per bus. Okay, so we know that there are 6 buses. So 6 times the number of students in each bus tells us how many students were in the bus, right? Or how many students went to the aquarium by bus, plus 7 other students that went by car is equal to the total amount of students, which is 331. Now, in order to, we've successfully created the equation. In order to solve this, we're going to do our inverse operations, and we're going to subtract the 7, work from the outside into the b, subtract 7, gives us 6b is equal to, and if we subtract 7 here, that's going to be 300. 31 minus 7 is 24. Cool. And because this is multiplied, we're going to divide and divide, giving us b equals 24, ignoring the 3, 24 divided by 6 is 4. So we have a 4 here. And then 300 divided by 6, well, we can pretend it's 30. 30 divided by 6 is 5. 300 divided by 6 is 50, 54. Okay, you can do that using long division if you prefer. Okay, now it's important when we do these problems, once we find a solution, especially with the word problems, does your solution make sense? Now, we were trying to find how many students were in each bus. Does it make sense that there'd be 54 students in a bus? Yeah, totally legitimate. Buses are pretty big these days, right? Now, the next one, we need some vocabulary first. Consecutive. Consecutive means one after the other. So consecutive, you can think of counting, like 1, 2, 3 are consecutive, or 21, 22, 23, or 47, 48, 49. These are all consecutive, okay? Another way of thinking about that in terms of sports is if a team wins a championship a couple of years in a row. So let's say they won 3 consecutive championships. They won it in 2007, 2008, and 2009, consecutive, okay? So it asks us the sum of 3 consecutive numbers, meaning counting numbers like 3, 4, 5, or so on, is 72. The sum means you add them all together. What is the smallest of these numbers? So we'll call x the smallest number. Smallest number, okay? And we know x plus, well, if x is 5, it'd be 5, 6, 7. Well, how do I get from 5 to 6? Oh, you just add 1, right? So 5 plus 1, and again, 5 is just a number I made up to make it more real. So 5 plus 6 plus 7, which would be 5 plus 2 is equal to 72. We know that the three consecutive numbers added together gives us 72. So we gave one number, and then the next number is just one more, and then the next number is two more. Okay? So putting these all together, or combining like terms, gives us 3x. We have three x's that are added together, plus 3 is the 1 and the 2, is equal to 72. Now to solve this, we subtract 3, which gives us 69. 3x equals 69. And divide both sides by 3. I ran out of space there, but x is equal to 23. Meaning that that is our smallest of the numbers, though the three consecutive numbers would be 23, 24, and 25. Okay. And I think that is about it. Okay, cool. If you have any questions, as always, do not hesitate to email me, and proud of you for sticking with it. Hope to hear from you soon.